Roll call vote.
You can go first.
Oh, we get to go first? Manstrick, aye.
Here, I.
Knapp, aye.
May I ask, next, when these come forward, it would be useful if we had a note that the zoning board had put variances on these.
It's been a discussion previously, and the subject comes back to a conversation that I know we've had, which is about the purpose of the Class 6 and private road agreement. So it's just about access, and so the select board has previously felt like that isn't necessary because just like any application for a building permit, the building inspector establishes compliance with the zoning ordinance through his regular process. The only thing different about this is that the select board and planning board are asked to weigh in on access and make any requirements related to access. And so the select board has previously felt like the compliance with the zoning ordinance already happens during an established procedure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chair Knapp.
That's correct. And then John oversees the enforcement and management of that.
Right.
No, I appreciate that. It just, I think one of the things that we came, certainly that I promoted, and I think Michael House did as well, is that we're concerned about the development of the town, how it's affecting the nature of the town. And some of these variances may or may not really enhance the rural character of our town, which was one of the things that actually both of us ran on.
I think you and I should have a good side conversation one of these evenings about our zoning.
Yeah, exactly. Very good.
Yeah, and so certainly if it's something the board would like, we could change that. That has been brought up before, and that was the position the board took. The board can certainly take a different position. I mean, obviously, all of the zoning board meetings are public meetings with a posted agenda. Abutters are notified, and that's, you know, a distinctly separate process than what we do here. But like I said, if the select board would like to take a different position, certainly willing to adapt.
Knowing that from my position, knowing I can gather all the data from the land use page on, if I have a question on something, usually I go back there and look, or I'll pop in and ask Marcia. And in some cases, it's even to express my fact that I do not agree with the decisions that the zoning board may have made. That's true. We don't have to agree.
I just can't, me and Peters don't get along and stuff, so it's hard for me, but I need to ask and look around, but I'm able to get the information. It's some extra time.
Okay.
Very good. We don't have any appointments. Public comment. I will open it to public comment.
So anybody participating remotely, if you'd like to wager a public comment, you can raise your hand or enter a chat into the comment feature. If you're on a phone, you might have to press *6 to unmute yourself and you can speak up.
Hearing no public comment, I will close the public comment section. And review of the May 24th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I have a comment
Okay.
on the Holiday Lake Shore. Selectman Bailey made some comments. It wasn't in the minutes. And I feel that he's not here to represent himself or that, but if we add things to the motions and stuff, we should be recognized. I know he made him added to the motion that was made last week. I don't see in the minutes.
So two things. One, we're not looking for a vote on the minutes tonight, just because we don't have a quorum of the folks who are present, because you missed that.
I'd be abstaining from the.
So there's a note in my TA report that will review those on the 24th. Certainly we can, you know, entertain any adjustments to the minutes. And I can ask Tiffany to look back at the motion. I mean, obviously the minutes aren't a transcript of what happened, but certainly motions and votes should be an accurate reflection of what happened at the meeting. So if you're saying Select Person Bailey added to a motion that isn't reflected in the minutes, we can address that certainly.
I'm just respecting him as a selectman. Also, person.
Great.
All right. Staff reports, Administrator McCaffrey.
Yes, thank you. So everything I have is in my report with the exception of our June work anniversaries here, the first meeting in June. So if you'll indulge me, we have a healthy list of employees celebrating their June work anniversaries. Starting with the longest tenure, we have Tim Booty, who has been with the fire department in a volunteer capacity for 26 years. Scott Young, a part-time police officer, has been with the town for 23 years. Katie Perry, also in the police department as the administrative assistant, has served in the town for 16 years. Monica Poitras is currently a recreation supervisor and has worked in town for 11 years. John Huckins, our esteemed building inspector, code enforcement officer, has worked for the town for 8 years now this month. Eric Baker, this is a mistake on my part, indicated as a police detective. No offense to Sergeant Baker, that should reflect police sergeant. We'll get it corrected for the second meeting in June. For 4 years, Sean Guile, fire EMS for 4 years, Jacob Cumming, fire EMS for 4 years, Donald Morse Jr., police officer for 3 years now, Tiffany Cottle, our municipal office administrator, who is excused this evening, has served with the town for 2 years this month, and Christopher Cook, library custodian, started at the town in the midst of a pandemic and has now been with the town for a year. So thank you for the tenure of all of those employees.
Can I get clarification? Is Tim Booty still a part-time with the fire department?
He serves in a call capacity.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's all, but I will, if you're ready for it, step in for Municipal Office Administrator Cottle and indicate what we have for signatures for you.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So we have the 2021 dog license warrant. So this is a warrant to issue a summons to all folks who haven't registered their dogs as required by statute. The town clerk and the police department will be working close on that. Barrington has over 2,000 licensed dogs, a tremendous amount of dogs for a community our size. And at last count, I think there were still just under 400 that were unlicensed. So a lot of work to be done there. For electronic signatures, the items previously submitted and still need one signature is a payroll manifest 2021-123 A, B, and C. A is the usual payroll, B is an additional fire payroll, and C is due to a late time card submission. And we want to make sure to get the employee paid. Accounts payable manifest 2021-224, 2 certifications of timber yield and associated warrants. And since the private road agreement was approved, the private road agreement and released for microphone. And then as we discussed the meeting minutes, we don't anticipate having a vote on tonight.
So person there.
You still gonna stick with electronic signatures? Are we not able to do it? Because I'm a Yankee. Don't know computers. Is there any way I can get more review of them now we're out of the pandemic? Payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we're certainly happy to adapt and do whatever the board would like. I think from staff perspective, it's still convenient to be able to submit things for signature on a rolling basis, opposed to waiting for the in-person signatures. Electronic signatures are still allowable under state law. That's a statute that existed prior to the pandemic. As far as the transparency, I mean, I know we've offered before, but we haven't been in person as much. We still have all of the backup for the payroll manifests and AP manifests. You're welcome to review them anytime. And something we also started, I know I talked to Mr. Mantrek about this over the weekend, or at the beginning of the weekend, was all of the documents that we have the select board sign is in the select board SharePoint. Which I know that you don't like to access that electronically, which you don't have to, but for other board members, for that transparency, all that history is there, organized by document type. So yeah, if there's something you'd like to see specifically different than that, I'm happy to do it. And certainly if the select board decided that we don't want to do electronic signatures anymore, you're welcome to make that decision as well.
Thank you. This is my personal opinion.
Sure.
All right. Under old business, we have the emergency management performance grant agreement, which, just as a reminder to everyone, is essentially a 50-50 split. We have to match it 100%. It is a grant for, we'd be looking for a total cost of about $9,000, of which $4,500 the town would be responsible for. And this would be updating our emergency management. What's the right term for that?
Emergency operations plan.
Yeah, emergency
So
operations.
technically, our local emergency operation,
All right.
LEOP.
I'm used to the LEPC, but that's the commission, not the other side of it.
I believe our $4,500 can be in kind too, is that correct?
It is.
So a lot of that just is the personnel cost.
Right, accounting for our manpower, man labor. And that's for woman power, woman labor,
Thank you.
all of the above. All right, motion, looking for a.
So this one's kind of specific. So whoever makes the motion, if you just try to read Roman numeral 4 to make sure that we capture what they're looking for. Federal fund.
So looking for a motion for the emergency management performance grant agreement. Anyone?
I move that we accept the terms of the emergency management performance grant. It's presented in the amount of $4,500 to update the town's local emergency operation plan. Furthermore, the board is asked to acknowledge the total cost of this project being $9,000, in which the town will be responsible for 50% match, $4,500. Additionally, select board is asked to consider authorizing the town administrator to sign all documents related to the grant.
Aim second.
Are we anticipating a lot of documents to be signed?
Yes.
Okay,
You want to show you all the chair do it?
so I'm willing to save the ink if,
The part of the problem is it's not just one round of documents.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, it's through the whole program. And I think it works well having, if you're willing to allow me to sign, I think that works well to keep the wheels of progress moving.
I have no issue with it.
I second it.
Roll call vote.
Metric, aye.
Air eye.
Nap aye. And the next item on the agenda is the recreation playground shade structure bid award. The rec director issued the advisement for RPF for the shade structure with a deadline of June 3rd. There were 2 folks who put in for it, and they are recommending to proceed with
Uplay.
thank you.
Or Ultiplay, excuse me.
Ultiplay. I was like,
Here I do, I try to help you and we're into the same jumble.
For the amount of $45,211 that would be funded via the Recreation Revolving Talent Fund. Is Jesse on?
No.
Excuse me. Yeah.
She's excused tonight.
Connor's going to handle any questions.
All right.
Yeah, this is a really exciting project for the community. Anybody that's got kids and goes to the playground, you're kind of under the microscope in the summer with the sun beating down on you. And obviously the recreation department tries their best to be responsive to what the community is looking for. And they've heard a lot of feedback about this kind of upgrade to the facility down there. So they're very excited. They're looking to move forward. It's probably going to be towards the end of the summer before it would be installed. Just with availability and whatnot, but they're excited about it nonetheless. So certainly happy to answer any questions, but good opportunity for the town.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure by the Recreation Department for them to move forward with Ultiplay.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote.
Aye, Metric.
Air eye.
Nap aye. All right. And under new business, First Seacoast Bank made a $5,000 food pantry donation. And it was awarded by a grant through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston Jobs for New England COVID Recovery Program. There's a mouthful. Um, I was excited to hear when they announced that they had chosen the Barrington Community Food Pantry to receive the one-time donation, and would like to definitely make sure that we extend our gratitude to First Seacoast Bank for making the $5,000 donation. I'm assuming we need a motion to accept the $5,000.
We don't, because it's going to the food pantry, separate than the town, a separate organization, more just for exposure to the town. The town supports the food pantry with annual budget appropriations. And this is a tremendous thing that local branch and its employees did for our food pantry. So no action is required, but just exposure for the generous donation.
Very good. 2021 land sale discussion. It's that time of year.
Yeah, it feels like it's that time of year all year. It's a long process.
Yep.
Long process for sure. So this is really just for the board and the community's information. Obviously, anybody that's tried to buy and sell in Barrington knows that there's a lot of demand. We hear from folks every single week, some weeks every day, about folks looking to buy tax deeded property that the town owns. We're very fortunate to have a volunteer group of the Town Lands Committee to help advise the select board on how to proceed. They do tremendous work. And, you know, I indicated it in my report. In 2019, 2020, they've recommended the sale of dozens of properties, and we've collected hundreds of thousands of dollars, not only as one-time payments for the repurchase of these properties, but getting them back on the tax rolls, and they're paying property taxes every time, every tax bill. So, you know, they take a very thoughtful approach. They're town centric. They're looking for what's in the best interest of the town, which isn't always, you know, collecting the most money. It's looking, you know, on Berry River and Longshores Drive. Can we make lots larger? A lot of small lots down there. Can we sell it to abutters at a discount so we can make larger lots? So we've made a ton of progress. They've completed their initial review of 24 properties for this year. Not all of them recommended for sale, but their notes are all available at barrington.nh.gov/2020 sale. So you can see the list that they have. Additionally, you know, it's similar to the prior 2 years. There's over half of the lots they're recommending to offer to abutters first. And if we did end up selling to abutters, we would need to pursue the RSA 4114A process, which requires comment from the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. Additionally, in recent years, the Conservation Commission has expressed an interest to be involved in the process earlier than that RSA 4114A process. And so I sent the notes from the 2021 land sale to the Conservation Commission chair, asking him to have his group take a look at the recommendations, see what they support, what they might have for additional recommendations on top of that. I also sent the same list to staff to get other staff input to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. So no select board action is required this time. I expect maybe 1 or 2 more meetings before we're looking to start heading in that direction on, you know, starting the process of offering to abutters and things like that. But the information is available, and just direct folks to that web address.
Select person there.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing Connie to touch on, the hours they put into, not just the meetings, but doing the research for the meetings. And then going out and checking on things on their personal time. The board puts a lot of time in. I'm gonna make that.
Yeah, they visit the properties, they talk to neighbors, they figure out, you know, hey, is this lot wet? Should this lot be built on? You remember one of the things we started last year was adding conditions to properties. So, you know, when the town owns a property, it's an opportunity to accomplish town goals. So there was a couple of properties in town where the conditions were, you know, removing the trailer, removing the dilapidated, moldy house, and getting something that fits in the community in those areas. So yes, absolutely, they do tremendous work. Very fortunate.
Moving on, agenda template update. So Connor has put together a proposal for updating the agenda template that will include the added town seal, added visitor orientation, with information regarding meeting access, meeting materials, public comment, special accommodations if needed, including links to the select board rules of procedure, virtual participation instructions, and where to access the meeting materials, which I believe truly just creates more transparency in the work that we're doing. Numbered agenda items for easy reference. And then some added procedural steps, such as calling the meeting to order, pledge of allegiance. I got agenda review, approval, and adjournment. And then you had also added the consent agenda. Is everyone familiar with what he's referencing or what Connor's talking about there? So I didn't see any feedback from George or Jim. Thank you. Really like sliding here tonight. So I don't know what their general feeling on it is. I'm okay with making a motion to move forward with it, but I really want to have an entire board discussion around the use of it.
Great.
So I don't know how you folks feel, if you want to proceed with a motion on it and then just have it on as a topic item for the next
That's only 10 days, so.
meeting.
Just
because
ask
I-
George.
Well, yeah,
Maybe
George
you
won't
can
be
reach
here
out to
the next
George
one.
personally, as
Yep.
chairman.
Okay, I just didn't get anything back from them, but I think it's important to make sure that the entire board is in consensus on it. All right, so I will make a motion to approve as noted with the added summary of adjustments listed is 1 through 6 in the town administrator's report.
Second.
Roll call vote.
There, I.
Mancheck, aye.
All right.
Falling under all that.
Oh, that's a consensus.
So it's not on the agenda, but under new business, I know there was some back and forth and conversation, and I had some conversation with
Yes.
Connor about Holly Lane. So I wanted to make sure we address that as a board this evening.
Yeah, so maybe I can start, give where we are, and I actually do have a scope from the contractor for Eversource. So Holly Lane is a Class 6 road, unmaintained Class 6 road on the coming off Route 4 in the south part of town. That road intersects the transmission right away for Eversource. As most folks in Barrington are aware, they're in the midst of a pretty comprehensive upgrade project to that transmission infrastructure. They requested to take access, or they didn't request to take access. They can take access because it's a public road. They requested to do some work on to make the work that they need to do and access to the power line right away easier. So some of the work they would be doing would include removing some boulders from the road, but also adding material. I can just read it direct for you. Improvements to Holly Lane would be from the last residence to Eversource right away. We would add 3 to 6 inches of processed gravel with a dozer and roller. Areas where water is now exiting the road would be stabilized with a plunge pool and backed with a bale barrier. All disturbance along the roadway caused by organization would be seeded and mulched. Please call any questions or clarifications. So Mark and I talked about it. Mark's met with them. Mark's overwhelming feedback has been they've been a tremendous contractor to work with. Like I said, they've taken access all across town. He's aware of the existing condition and is confident that the road will be returned in a more favorable condition to this town. And I think he's also on the call if you had any questions for him as well.
Is that Michael's?
Yes.
Yep. Who's doing the work?
With Michael's without an A.
Yeah. Okay. And I know, having driven the road, that it is a giant U-shaped bowl, so everything sits in and or runs right down the middle of that road. select person there.
Yes, that road, I have a lot of concerns with. As power lines. Power lines are owned by someone. It's not the Eversource or public service or something. That was confusion. And there's been a lot of vandalism and littering out there in years past. A house was shot at through it and stuff. And then I just found out this weekend someone died out there. Suicide. I didn't know that. And personally, my neighbor has been promised a million times by Eversource put a gate up. Every time they come through every 3-4 years and open up his property, everyone their brother goes down there, dumps trash, people go parking and stuff, and people use it for land. He has posted signs up and stuff. And there's no real chasing off. And I've talked to individual taxpayers that about that property on both ends, and they've self-policed it. One of them has a solar light and thing for people legally dumping. One has a ringer, and I thanked them for their keep an eye on it. My fear is now with more approval, everyone their brothers will be down there, and it's not policed in the past, and no enforcement. It's gonna be worse. And one of the biggest properties in town, the Tamposi, we abut it. So I would ask Eversource, when they're done on Michael's, when they're done, could they put up some poles to a designated area in the area so citizens can police it and the residents can police it and the police department can police it. Because there's gonna be ongoing issues there. The past has proven it. And I can possess that because my neighbor has power lines on his property.
If I understand what you're asking, where Holland Lane meets the power line right away, you were wondering if Michael's could put up barriers, poles, or otherwise
On the right side, it's all conservation.
along the right of way from the road. So when folks get up in there, they can't easily enter the right of way from the road.
Yes. We
Okay.
can't block the road,
Exactly.
but if we designate an area, we use poles up, get someone to park there. The trailhead can be picked up out there, citizens can patrol it, and the neighbors are already doing it now on their own free will. And he wrote, I think, he said they want to upgrade from the last house. I've had talk with that person in that house. Every time they come in every 3-4 years, they mess it up. He makes a phone call to Eversource. They fix it, but he has to go through that big thing. And the area collapsed at the culvert in the front. So upgrade should come right from the edge of pavement. They're going through there. And I wish we had more heads up because there's like 5 taxpayers out there that own land. And then the conservation has the biggest lot now. There's like 2,200 acres out there of conservation land. And that's why I responded right away on it. As a taxpayer and a board commissioner.
So I think maybe what I could propose is if the board supported your suggestion of trying to discourage access from the road to the right of way. And then maybe get before the Conservation Commission about a more formal area, because the town owns that property where on the right side of the road, like you're talking about. So if the Conservation Commission was interested in establishing some area, is there a trailhead there right now?
The road's there, they can go easy tie into it, but all I'm saying, they take the leftover gravel, or they bring it to the road on a thing, and they have telephone poles, just to designate an area. And then there's some signs up because we have to protect our own property, and we have to look out the right of the 5 people, other taxpayers. So by allowing this action, I feel there's gonna be a lot more people going out there. Because every time they open up behind my neighbor's house, we're up there picking up trash and chasing people off. So they're done, then we block it. But we cannot block this road. Because it's a public right of way, but we can't, there's 2 taxpayers in town I talk personally, they self-police it. There's a lack of enforcement in the past. And now, once this gets open, easier access, everyone's gonna be there.
I can tell you when I went out there to look at it, the gentleman who's the homeowner on the right came down with his 4-wheeler to see who was coming back in there because there really isn't anything beyond his house other than a couple plots of land and a gentleman who's logging farther down there. On what I believe is the old Whiskey property.
So I guess that what the select will have to decide is what they'd like to ask for and what they'd like to require. And I think, involving the Conservation Commission on anything about establishing an area to park or a trailhead would be appropriate. But I think the primary request is to improve access so that they can upgrade the utility infrastructure back there, and the select board can decide, what requirements they'd like to put on that, if any, or request of them. So,
Select person there.
And the signs went up on Route 4 and on Holly Lane. And once the rain stopped, they come down and put it back up. They already started working on it, I believe, right? They're going there tonight. I think you can see gravel.
no, the road agent called them off last week. And I don't know, I mean, he can speak to if they've done anything specifically, but they're prepared to start doing the work that they need to get out there. But when the select board objected, we called them off.
And then I talked to them out there behind my neighbor's property. And I just talked to one of the operators. They're very, very nice to talk with and stuff. And they're from Wisconsin, and they set up a place in Pembroke. And they want to stay in New Hampshire, so I think they will do a good job and everything. I have no doubts in my mind. And then they flagged off where I cleaned up an area for my neighbor, not to disturb it. And they did a complete job up there.
Mark, if you wouldn't mind unmuting your phone. Just have a question for you with regard to with the work that's proposed, if it's an improvement situation or if it's going to require a whole lot of extra work and after to shore it up even more.
I could barely hear you. I guess I'm understanding the question to be, is what they're proposing going to be enough for that road? Is that my understanding, Stan?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess so, because I know that road is so narrow and in such a little bowl that enough is probably never really nearly enough in that, because it's probably more of a goat path than it is a road in some instances.
Okay, so I guess I would ask you guys, what kind of a width would you be looking for out there? I think we're governed by ditch lines on one side, maybe even both sides, as to how wide the existing conditions are.
Andy was just asking if what your understanding of what they're proposing is an improvement from the current condition. We'll end up in.
Help us. Were you able to hear us, Mark?
I'm losing you guys.
I'm asking if what we're getting is a net improvement, and at the end of it, if it helps us out, we have to come back into the later point to do additional work back there.
Well, I guess I'd have to say if they just improve existing conditions with the width that's there, and something happens property-wise or subdivision-wise at a later date, what they're doing would probably have to be undone to get the road wider and, proper ditch lines and shoulders for whatever any proposed project would be out there.
Does it create less of a, I guess, a hazard or a problem for us with what they're doing? Even if nobody decided to develop further back, does it make the situation of that road better?
Yes.
Thank you. Select person there?
Well, that's my concerns, because there's gonna be more people going out there. And we're gonna have an ongoing problem with litter and trash, as proven in the past. And my personal opinion, there's no way you can meet any of our regulations with there. There's no way. It's impossible with the tree lines in there. And there's no major construction to be done. And I don't know the width of it. It's probably only a 2-rod road. Who knows? It ain't big.
No.
My concern is that there's some taxpayers in town. They've been keeping an eye on it at their own expense. And there's other taxpayers out there and stuff, and it's been neglected out there over the years. And I don't want to see it get worse. And then expense put onto the town out there, picking up trash, dealing with, even fires. People out there messing around and stuff. And that, all I'm saying is, I don't think it's unreal for us to ask them to clean up a little parking area and block it off and designate it. So it's not, a demand's not put on the residents who watch it now. And then if the trailhead's established, people who walk, they can police it too. And then if the police department has time, they could pull in there. So there will be better passage in there.
So here's my proposal on this. It sounds like what's happening to the road, everybody kind of seems to agree will make the road better.
That's what I'm scared of.
Oh, right. The second part of that, I suggest that we request the Conservation Committee to weigh in on. And if they have something they would either request or advise for where the access is, that we allow them to weigh in on what they think is the appropriate means to either block it, secure it, or contain it afterward, because this project isn't going to happen overnight.
And I guess what I would say is that a request or requirement of Michael's? You request they consider the input of the Conservation Commission, or you require it? And if you require it, are you comfortable with them getting started prior to the Conservation Commission weighing in?
I would say it's a request, because they're, at least in my take, because we're asking them to do something that they don't have to do anyway, because they could restore it all back to the same condition as is and haul it all out of there if they didn't want. So it probably would be easier and a little more palatable if it comes as a request.
Understood.
What's your?
Granted, I'm just saying, I'm just taking prior knowledge of the area and living in that area and complaints from the neighborhood. But as a select person and a taxpayer, I'm looking out for the conservation, bringing this forth. It's my personal thought. I think there's gonna be future problems here. It's gonna be expense to the town. But I don't put a burden on the conservation or the town. They're overlooking it now. If they do a trail out there in a designated area, other people keep an eye on it. The police will be running out there every 5 minutes.
Shannon, do you have any feedback?
No, I think your point is well made. I think the request is what we ought to do at this point. And if it improves the road, then that probably in the long term is going to be beneficial. And then we can work on your concerns here as a separate issue.
Okay. Mark, are you good with what we're requesting?
Yes.
Thank you for all your help on working with them on this. I know you spent a lot of time gathering a scope of work from them.
You're welcome.
Are there any other items under new business? Select persons reports?
Your first one, wasn't
Well, the town lands we got, this information is presented to you, and the conservation is not meeting till Thursday. That was too easy.
it? There was a meeting of the transfer station committee on the 2nd of June. Erin is here. I can see her. She's muted. Basically, introduced the new lead attendant, Joe Clark, and then discussed some of the new things she has in mind. Maybe it'd be easier if she filled that in. Would that be all right, Chairman Knapp?
Perfectly fine with that.
Erin, could you speak to us
Good evening. So we briefly went over the solid waste reduction, and part of our plan for that for the transfer station is to look into getting a book bin as well as a textile recycling bin. Pre-COVID, we did have a Planet Aid clothing bin at the transfer station. And when COVID came in effect, they took the bin, and I have been trying to get a hold of them, but I have not received a response back. So I opened it up to a couple other companies, and I received a call back from a company called Apparel Impact, who services other bins in the area. So it'd be easy to become part of their route, as well as Discover Books. So it looks about a few weeks out to implement the bins at the transfer station, but I will keep everybody posted along with that. So that was our big discussion, and then the introduction of Joe, and then I think that was it, right, Dannon?
You mentioned you're gonna do some work on composting too.
Yep, I'm going to contact a couple companies about the potential of composting, more on, the residents' part, but seeing what we can do to implement that to, again, offset some of the weight in our MSW, which food waste actually is a big part of our tonnage for MSW. So again, we're just looking at reducing waste in all areas, and that was basically the main focus on our meeting.
Thanks, Aaron. The other thing I'd like to mention on that is some of the board members weren't aware of the plastic film project that's ongoing with the record department. So just a reminder that that's still ongoing. The school board had a workshop, a 4-hour workshop on the 1st of June, which I wasn't able to attend, but they basically covered a lot of their history and their future. Some of the things I think might impact us more directly. They're going to have to start a 3-year program on technological innovations for school, and there might be some chances that we can interact with them through their tech committee, our tech board as well. And they're also talking about more effective communication within the school, but also in the community. And again, we might be able to interact with them on that. And there's a school board meeting tomorrow, which I will attend. And the ABC is going to meet on the 21st of June to evaluate some of the applicants for their position. I think there are 2 or maybe 3 people that have asked to join that group. I don't know the last number. Connor, do you know that?
3. How many people? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, 3. Coming up on 3. And so those are my committee.
Very good. Technology committee, Matt, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that meeting because the meeting time is right at the same time as my pickup time with my son. And then tomorrow is the planning board meeting. So it's a double meeting week. And then I'm off the building committee, but the building committee had a meeting last week. So.
But George said, who reports on that, me or George?
Well, George isn't here, and George wasn't at the meeting, so I think you're on the hook, or I'm happy to provide an update, and I'll also provide an update from the technology.
This went over a couple of designs up, and they met some of the, my first meeting, so they met some of the requests from the building committee, and then they added a couple on information notes for Conner to address for the next meeting, and that's about it.
And for the technology committee, the meeting was actually a non-public, and it was a review of the cybersecurity audit that the select board commissioned. And that was a very productive meeting. That was a meeting with our managed service provider, with Rockport. And that's really going to be a template that we will use to make continued improvements. We've come a long way. As you all know, you've supported a lot of the bigger projects. And so in the coming months, the select board will be presented with some requests for expenditure to make some further improvements. A lot now on training and policy development, and we have a lot of the structure still in place or in place now, which was identified during that process. So the technology committee focused on that primarily. And I do want to say, Select Person Manchak had mentioned it about the crossover with the town and the school. I'm tremendously grateful to Jeff Delange, the IT director for the school, for his assistance helping get the network set up, both wireless and wired for tonight, and help make this hybrid model successful, which we'll use for the select board, the planning board, and the zoning board. So tremendous amount of help from them. No questions asked, which was terrific.
It is nice to see technology finally working on our behalf in the town. And I know, I remember when we started the technology committee meeting, when we still had like open internet and wireless at the town hall, and you could access anything and everything, unfortunately.
Very much so.
And is everybody, if you're following anything that's happening between oil pipelines, towns being hacked, and everything else being, people getting hung up with cybersecurity, it really is an important part of what we do, because if it shuts down our town from doing their day-to-day operations, that becomes a major impact to how we all function.
We have enough trouble as it is.
That's right. We don't need any other help.
Police. There, stuff.
All right. Any other select persons reports or comments? Hearing none there, I will open final public comment.
So if you're participating virtually, as many of you are tonight, and you'd like to wager a comment, you'll need to unmute yourself. You can raise your hand if you're on your computer, or enter a chat in the comment feature. If you're on a phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself and speak up. Let us know you'd like to speak.
And raise them after just.
Oh, no, that's the recording, which I will note, full responsibility lies with your faithful town administrator. I didn't start recording until in the middle of the public hearing. So for those folks looking for the recording of this meeting, you're going to miss out on our wonderful Pledge of Allegiance and introduction, and the first part of our discussion of the public hearing, but it will be captured in minutes.
We'll keep the meeting to a minimum.
Okay, well.
You're asking for amends?
So what'd you say?
Are you asking for amends?
Yes, exactly.
All right, seeing no public comments, I will close public comment. And I will make a motion to the board to enter into non-public for
Personal reputation.
Legal reputation.
legal reputation
Land.
and land.
Practically, have.
Just missing the personnel part.
No, we have personnel.
Oh, do we? That's right. We do have
Personal reputation.
Personnel reputation.
Terrorism, that's the one we don't touch very often.
Yeah.
Reason for non-public for
Right.
purposes of terrorism. So looking for a vote.
Second motion.
Roll call vote.
Manchak, aye.
Air I.
Nap aye. All right, everyone have a wonderful evening. When we come out of non-public, we will, I don't know if we'll have anything to communicate, but if we do, we will make sure that it is communicated appropriately to the public, and then we'll just be adjourning the meeting at that point.
And that will be recorded.
All right. Gotta mute that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Yeah, it's not just the mute, it's, you've got to get your speaker silenced.
So welcome back. The select board discussed personnel matters in non-public and denied a request to delay an eviction. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion to seal the minutes for non-public indefinitely to avoid the repetition of those discussed.
Make a motion to seal the minutes from the June 14th, non-public. Indefinitely.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, bye. Great. All right, and I'll make a motion to adjourn. So I'll second your motion to adjourn. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Fantastic.
Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Recording has stopped.